results, I think they said over 100 indictments federally just in this 3-4 month surge. And now we're going to go in there with more resources to finish it.
And we are grateful for that. And I think it's so important for my colleagues, what we have seen in Memphis. You mentioned something very important. Your agents go in and they go in quietly. There was no press conference. There was no fanfare. You went in there to work. And very importantly, you gathered the intel. Who are these gang leaders? Where are they? Figuring out who was doing what, and then setting up the process to apprehend these individuals. And it requires infiltrating those networks and having that data to work from so that you are working in partnership. And as I have talked with elected leaders in Shelby County and Memphis, as we have talked with those in law enforcement, they have been so grateful to have this support and this additional education that comes, because local police are learning from your agents when they are learning how to track these gangs and infiltrate these networks. We know that phase 2 of this operation is going to kick off. The Guard is going to be there to support the Memphis Police Department to help them kind of catch up, because they still have a lot of people on their board. They know who they are, where they are, what they're doing. They want to apprehend them and bring them forward. So talk a little bit about how phase 2 is going to continue to work to support the law enforcement efforts in Memphis.
Well, it's just like what happened here in Washington, D.C. It takes a whole of government interagency approach where we're working with the Attorney General, the DEA, the ATF, the U.S. Marshals, Department of Homeland Security, because each one of those agencies has specialized capabilities. And when we surge together to work off of the ground level intelligence was collected, you see what happened in Washington, D.C. here. And that's the next phase of it, because you are able to utilize the National Guard to set up border perimeter operations. So when you go into an area, you have the secure workspace to get in there and stay in there. The key here, Senator, is sustained criminal investigations and sustained prosecutions that clear Memphis, like we did Washington, permanently, and leave behind a blueprint for what local law enforcement can do with our federal partners to sustain that. We don't want to go backwards, and that's critical, but we're in the next step. Sustaining it will be the last one.
Well, and we certainly appreciate that. I do want to touch on Operation Restore Justice. And Senator Britt mentioned some of this very briefly, and I know that you and A.G. Bondi have done a tremendous amount of work in protecting children. I appreciate that. And we passed my Report Act last year, and President Biden signed it, and this does require social media to report to NCMEC so that we can have these perpetrators followed up with and apprehended. That's a good start. We're still trying to get the Kids Online Safety Act passed. That has been a bipartisan effort. We have looked with disdain at what has happened with Discord and Charlie Kirk's alleged killer. Talk for a moment about what else Congress ought to do in order to give you all the toolbox you need to apprehend these predators and pedophiles.
Well, I think we need to go after the monetary backbone of this infrastructure like we discussed earlier. I think we also need to make parents across the country aware of how invasive some of these social media sites are and how much criminal enterprise is going on and how easily these kids can be sucked into it. And also, the only way, in my opinion, to do that, as Senator Klobuchar and I believe Senator Graham had stated, was, we need to work on Section 230. It's been too long since we've addressed it. Nobody's being held accountable. They're making money, and our youth is dying. And that's just unacceptable.
Well, we have that reform bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Welch. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And just at the outset, I just want to say what I think all of us believe, and that is that the political violence that is so afflicting our country, it doesn't matter whether it's from the right or the left. I mean, all of us have an obligation to fiercely advocate for our point of view. All of us have an obligation to respect people with whom we disagree. The folks we disagree with are our opponents, but they're not our enemies. And I hope all of us keep that in mind and do the best we can to set that example. I want to congratulate the FBI. I want to congratulate the Utah state and local law enforcement for the very good work that it did in apprehending the violent assailant of Charlie Kirk, and that is a terrible, terrible tragedy. Director Patel, at one point you made an announcement that the suspect was in custody. We got our man. It turned out that was not true. In fact, I think that was about 27 hours before the person now in custody was apprehended. Why did you make that statement?
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you letting me address this. What the FBI does is not just locate and find suspects, but we also participate in eliminating subjects. And what we had at the time was a subject in custody in relation to this investigation. So in my commitment to work with the public to help identify subjects and suspects, I put that information